Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to a brand new video here today, and welcome to my F1 2020 predictions. I'm finally getting around to doing these predictions. People have been asking for them in the comments below, and of course other creators have done them a little bit earlier in the season. I think I've seen on YouTube in general some people doing predictions 2 months ago, something like that, but I thought I'd wait till after the entirety of F1 testing was done. I think this is when I did the predictions this time last year as well for 2019. I wanted to actually, I forgot, I wanted to react to my predictions for 2019 at the end of the season. I did not do that, so I'm going to make a note to myself and remind myself at the end of the year, basically, so a long time to go, but I want to then react to these predictions and see how ridiculous they are compared to the real life season, because I think this year has scope to be a little bit ridiculous. We've got a very tight midfield fight, potentially. Also, we don't really know truly where the likes of Ferrari are, maybe, and Red Bull compared to Mercedes, and obviously you've got the rest of the teams. Obviously, like I said, the midfield's going to be crazy, so yeah, the predictions are going to be a little bit off. I'm sure we'll all disagree on what's going to go ahead. And last year, I think more so than any other year, we saw you can't read anything into testing, and also you can't read anything into just like general team form, really, because it sometimes gets thrown out of the water. But at the same time, the reason why I did this after testing was things like the Racing Point team coming with a Mercedes B-Spec car. You didn't expect that, basically, before testing, and now that's going to inform my predictions very much so, because it's kind of, that's more of a concrete sort of thing that you can see in front of your eyes that's actually clearly there and affecting things. So we're going to do the team predictions first, because then obviously that will kind of affect the drivers' predictions in a way, because obviously F1, being F1, unfortunately sometimes you are bottlenecked by the machinery you're in rather than your kind of skill set. So I'll do the teams first, go through them, kind of explain why, and then we'll do the drivers as well. But like I said, I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree with me or have differing opinions, so let me know what your predictions are in the comments below. Have a discussion with the people around you in the comment section. We'll see what people are thinking ahead of the Australian Grand Prix. But we're going to start things off then with P number 10, last place in the Constructors' Championship, and it's no surprise, it's going to be Williams. Obviously, although they have improved massively, it would seem this year they came to testing on time this time, which is always useful. Russell said the car is infinitely better. As I said in your F1 comments before, it's very easy to do a lot better when your car was so bad last year. And also, for a team like Williams, I feel like they'll also put a lot into 2021, and so they might actually sacrifice this year a little bit in terms of they may run out of development quite quickly through the season, so they might start off stronger, and maybe closer to the kind of midfield, if you will, but I think they might drop off a little bit. So P10 for them, solid. P9, and this is a bit painful for me to say, because of course I'm affiliated with Alfa Romeo in a sense, because I'm the team principal of their esports team, but P9 for me has got to be Alfa Romeo, although it seems like maybe they could do better, because you've got the second full year for Giovinazzi. I hope he does a little bit better. You've got Kimi maybe settling into the team even better and maybe having more of a say over that car. From what I've seen of testing and in general, I just don't see them doing any leaps and bounds better than it did last year. They've got a very similar looking car to last year in major areas. Obviously, in details, it's a different car, but there's a lot of major kind of philosophies that they've kept over from last year's car, which I have a hunch are just aren't the right way. That extreme front wing they've got, it seems like I just don't think that is the concept that is the fastest way to go about it, because even Ferrari have kind of gone away from that a little bit and gone less extreme than last year on their front wing design. So I think just things like that maybe tell me that maybe they've gone down a path where maybe they will still make some gains, but maybe not as many as other teams. And you've also got teams like Haas that are maybe improving, and that brings me on to P8. I think Haas will be in P8. I think it will be a better season for them. I think they'll maybe be battling Alfa Romeo maybe all season long, but I think it won't be any better than that. Obviously, last year they had a torrid time. They kept on qualifying well and then just going backwards with their tyre wear. So I could be wrong, actually, thinking about it. They did qualify really well at some circuits, just as well as teams like Mclaren and Renault. So they well could be higher than P8. That's the kind of iffy one for Haas, is really if they got on top of their tyre wear. But at the same time, I think other teams have also improved so much more. So that's why I'm going to put them in P8. I think they'll be battling Alfa Romeo a lot this season, really. I think maybe start off fast and then go slow towards the end like they always have done. Same way like I just said with Alfa Romeo, really, in terms of development path. P7 now. This one is maybe a little bit controversial. Maybe people aren't going to like this prediction because they're fans of the drivers or the team. But Renault, P7. I'm going to put Renault in P7. I think it's going to be a bit of a dud year for Renault. Yes, they've changed their car massively at the front end to change that entire philosophy because they found that was the issue with their car last year. But I think, honestly, I haven't seen enough on the rest of the car to be impressed enough. I could be proved completely wrong, but I just have a hunch it's one of those just dud years for Renault. You know, it just set up to be. You know, this story of Ricciardo going to Renault didn't quite work out in 2019 as strong as he wanted it to. This one, he's saying we need to be better, we need to be stronger. I just get that sense of it's going to be another meh year for Renault 2 years in a row, where they try maybe then early on kind of abandon it and go for 2021 instead. Also, I think another reason why they're going to be in P7 is due to my prediction for P number 6, which is Alpha Tauri, because I think they're going to have another solid year. If you remember, points-wise, they actually got very close to Renault. Maybe like one more podium or one more P4 and 5 from Kvyat and, you know, Gasly obviously in the second half of the season, or Albon in the first half. They could have overtaken Renault. Legit could have overtaken Renault. I don't think people appreciate enough how good of a job Toro Rosso did last season. So then, obviously, their new rebranded name, Alpha Tauri, I think they can come in P6. I think that car shares a lot of similarities to the Red Bull. Probably maybe are going to share even more similarities as we go on through this season, maybe in terms of development, because the entire rear end is a Red Bull car since last year, and I think they're going to just continue to improve. I think you've got Gasly in for the whole season, and I think, look, I think a lot of people write off Gasly as a very, very average, below average driver. I think he's still a solid driver. I think you just got to give him the correct car. The Red Bull was way too twitchy for him. He couldn't match Verstappen as well. I think you saw straight away he was a renewed man back in the Toro Rosso. He had a great first season with Toro Rosso, so I think having him in that car the whole season, alongside a pretty decent Kvyat, who's found his confidence back in Formula 1, I think they could get P6 for sure. So that's my prediction for them. Number 5, and I'm kind of annoyed to say this, is going to be McLaren. I think Racing Point are going to get P4. Now, McLaren P5, I would have put them easily P4 had it not been for Racing Point. I've really, you know, obviously you guys know I used to be a Jenson Button fan, or some of you may know if you watch my videos long enough, but I used to be a massive hardcore Jenson Button fan. I'm not really a fan of any driver now in Formula 1. Like, I don't think I'll ever cheer anyone on as the same way as I did with Jenson Button, so I'm kind of more of a neutral in terms of I have a few drivers I kind of have a likening to, but I don't really support a driver anymore, and therefore I don't really support a team either. I've never supported a team. I've never really found F1 to be a thing you support one team. I've always supported a driver, and that driver was JB. So, but because of JB, I've always had a soft spot for McLaren, obviously, because he drove for McLaren for so many years, and it was a very painful time at the end of his career to be supporting McLaren. So it's kind of cool to see them get back up there. Obviously, Norris and Sainz are such a likable pair. I've always had a likening to Carlos Sainz. I've always wanted to see him do well, and since Norris came into the sport, obviously he's one of those drivers that is pushing social media. He's a younger guy, so he kind of understands it all more. You know, he's a big gamer. He does Twitch stuff, so I've always had a soft spot for McLaren, so I would have loved to say P4, but I think that Racing Point car is quick. I think looking at what people are saying, you know, you saw on the race runs that Vettel and Stroll did. Stroll was very close to Vettel. You've got people in the paddock saying that Racing Point are either going to be in no man's land between McLaren or whoever is on the top of the midfield and Ferrari, or they're going to be bridging the gap to Ferrari and the top three. And that brings me on to, I think Ferrari are going to be P3, Racing Point P4. They've copied Mercedes' car. Enough said. I think they're going to have a pretty decent start of the season. Even if they start off quick and go slow at the end because of lack of development, I think that'll be enough to get them P4 ahead of McLaren. Like I said, then P3 is Ferrari. You know, I want to believe and I want to hope that they're sandbagging so much, but they're trying to convince people that they aren't, and I genuinely think they are actually slow. The ones, they're not lying. They are actually that slow, and I think they're going to have issues at Australia. I think Racing Point might be on the heels, especially with Perez. I think they'll be on the heels. Ferrari will definitely develop through the year. But I think by that point, the damage would have been done with Verstappen and Albon being so consistent, and also Mercedes obviously being as good as they are. So Ferrari, I think they'll get P3, even if they are winning some races at the end of the year. Maybe, I don't even know about that. We'll see. But I think P3 for Ferrari this year. Number 2 is going to be Red Bull Racing for me, and number 1 Mercedes, just because of the pedigree. Obviously, Mercedes have won every single championship in the V6 era. You can't not have them as P1. I think in terms of like a safe bet. I would love to say Red Bull, but Red Bull historically have hit the ground running slow. It seems like this year they might hit it faster than last year's, but I think it still seems like Mercedes have that overwhelming pace advantage. And consistency also, that's the bigger thing for me, consistency. That Red Bull in the hands of both drivers has been very twitchy. So I think although it might be quick, maybe as quick as a Mercedes car at, generally most races, I think the consistency for the tyres, the kind of general drivability, I think the Mercedes looks more comfortable. So that's why I'm saying Red Bull P2 and Mercedes P1. I think Red Bull, though, will give them a good run. Like, they'll be a lot closer than they ever have been in terms of other challenges ever have been to Mercedes in previous years, because of the nature of Verstappen having a quick Red Bull, Albon being a pretty consistent driver actually, and adapting to that Red Bull that's pretty much made for Max Verstappen. So I think they'll be close, but yeah, Mercedes in the end, P1, it's a safe bet. So in terms of the drivers, then let's rattle through this. P20, I'm going to put Latifi. I think he's an okay driver, but I think it's taken him so long to get to Formula One, and I think Russell is that much better as well. That Russell will have the measure over him. I think Russell could potentially be a future world champion if he gets in the right car. So Russell P19, beat Latifi. Obviously, though, the Williams cars, I think they'll be fighting for the wooden spoon. Maybe 1 point that Russell might get in the off race where there's some crazy action. So Russell for me, P19. I'm going to say Romain Grosjean in P18. I think he's going to have another pretty meh year, and I hope, it's harsh to say, but I hope that this is the year that Haas finally see that Grosjean is just not good enough. He's not as good as he used to be, and it's time to cut him loose for 2021. So Grosjean P18. I'm going to say Giovinazzi, unfortunately, because I do have a soft spot for Gio. Kind of harking back to F1 my driver days, just because of that, honestly. But I think he's going to have a solid year, but because where the car is and where he generally has been performing, I'm going to say P17 Antonio Giovinazzi. P16 Kevin Magnussen, being the leader of the Haas team, but like I said, I don't think Haas are going to be jumping up that much further than they were last year. Just maybe battling Alfa Romeo, maybe getting some good points, maybe 1 or 2 races, but consistently over the course of a whole season, I think he'll end up in P16. I'm going to say P15 is Kimi Räikkönen. I think Räikkönen will have a more consistent season. I hope. He kind of dropped off halfway through the year last year, but where I think the car is going to be, I think P15 will be the max he could probably hope for. P14, I'm going to say Danica Fiat, the Russian. Had a solid year last year, got his confidence back, enjoying his racing. Got the P3, obviously, and really had some great races like Spa as well, but I think overall, there might be a few dud ones where he's kind of not really there, and so P14 is where I think he'll be. Then we get to the kind of interesting mix here of drivers I've got. I've got P13 Ocon, 12 Stroll, Ricciardo 11, and Gasly in P10. Like I said, with Gasly and AlphaTauri, I think they're going to have a really decent, solid year. I think that car is going to be quick, and I think it's going to be more consistent maybe than the Renault. Ricciardo, I peg him to beat Ocon. I think Ocon is a great driver, but Ricciardo is also a great driver. So I think they're going to be quite evenly matched. And to be fair, Stroll just slots in P12 because I think, yes, the Racing Point car is that quick, but in the hands of Stroll, he's going to be just okay. Like, he'll be able to pilot it to some decent points, not the high end points of like P6 or a surprise P5 or 4 or whatever, or maybe even a surprise podium. I think we'll leave that to Perez. So I think Stroll will get some decent points, P7, P8s and P9s ahead of the Renaults, maybe enough to maybe get ahead of Ocon, maybe beat Ricciardo and Gasly a few times. So I think Stroll will be there in P12. P9, I'll put Lando Norris, and P8, Carlos Sainz. I think Norris has to work on his consistency in the race. He was definitely a better qualifier than he was a race driver last year. Sainz was just mega in that McLaren, doing a great job, team leader. I think he's going to do the same thing again, basically. But then, like I said, with the Racing Point car being so good, I peg P7 to be Sergio Perez. I think best of the rest there. P7, that car, I think it's going to be, I think in the hands of him, it's going to be quick at the start of the season and has potential to get a podium or 2, maybe, depending on how quick the car stays. I think maybe a podium somewhere like Baku, maybe on the cards. I mean, obviously, all this depends on all the stuff with coronavirus as well, if we're even going to go to these races at the start of the season. But I think Perez will get best of the rest in P7. Obviously, last year was a bit different with best of the rest because you had Gasly performing so poorly and Albon coming up through, so it was a bit of a kettle of fish if P6 was available rather than P7, but best of the rest this year, P7, Sergio Perez. I'm going to say P6 is going to be Sebastian Vettel. I think the Ferrari is going to struggle, and I think Leclerc again will have the measure over Vettel. I'm put Alexander Albon in P5 and Leclerc P4, just because I think maybe towards the end of the season, maybe the Ferrari might be good enough just to bag some good results, and so maybe Leclerc will be able to just pull ahead of Albon. Otherwise, I think it's going to be very close between Leclerc and Vettel again, like it was last season in terms of points. Albon, I would say P5, just because, yes, he's consistent. Yes, he took to the Red Bull a lot better last year compared to Gasly. But I think technically, if the Red Bull's even more twitchy, maybe even more on the edge and suits Verstappen, I think Albon might have some slow weekends where he's just not really there. He's like just P5 or something. So I'm going to peg him as P5, but I think easily you could swap that to P4. But I just didn't want it all to be that harsh to Ferrari. I think they will pick it up. I think they will push, being Ferrari, they will push for development and try and get better results later on in the year. I'm going to say P3 is Valtteri Bottas. Obviously, I'm pegging Mercedes to do well, so even Bottas will be able to get P3 in the championship, but I think this year Verstappen will get P2, and I think Hamilton will win a championship, another championship, and equal Michael Schumacher's record. That's just a safe bet in it as well, because Verstappen could come out guns blazing. But like I said, the Mercedes car has been so consistent, and Hamilton is great at being consistent. You know, he was so consistent last year. So I think for me, it's going to be him for another championship and to equal Schumacher's record. Verstappen, though, I think gives him a good run for the money in P2. Maybe not as close as we want it to be, but I think closer than the last few years. Not like 30 points adrift, hopefully only about 10 points adrift or something like that. But yeah, those are my predictions. Obviously, those could be completely wrong, and we'll see. And I really want to try and do a reaction video to this video at the end of the season. But let me know what you guys are thinking for your predictions for F1 2020. Obviously, these are just wild opinions, you know, little hunches, bias from who I like and who I don't like and whatnot. So let me know what you guys make of it, but don't read too much into it. But if you guys did enjoy knowing my predictions and my thoughts on what the season might look like, then be sure to hit that like button. If you're on your around here to have a weekly 4-long content, I've been aarava. Hope you guys enjoy this day. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.